forgiving the world. Can you just give me one example so we can kind of imagine it in our heads?
Yeah. Forgiving the world for me is more about the whole idea of punishment and retribution and revenge, which is the primary method we see most people seeking right now. As we say, an eye for an eye makes the whole world blind. More famously, actually, MLK said the famous quote, "Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that." If you approach an energy with the same energy, you're just beefing it up. You have to approach it with the opposite polarity to depolarize that energy, which is what Martin Luther King Jr. did so well in the civil rights era. They came about these, about actual systemic racism they were facing, like literally couldn't go to the same schools, the same restaurants. They were hated. And Martin Luther King was evolved enough to know the only way we can defeat this ideology is by demonstrating we are not your victims and you are not our oppressors. So we are by not engaging in violence in return, we are demonstrating that we are coming from a higher state of consciousness. And something about that demonstration to ego, like deflates ego very quickly when you don't fit into the role. But when you fight hate with hate or fire with fire, both egos are getting fueled and reinforcing our negative beliefs about one another. So it gets worse and worse, right? So we really want to focus on this idea, which kind of goes back to religion, this punitive, punishing God who seeks revenge for evil. We grew up as a Christian nation, and that's been kind of instilled in us, right? So we have to undo that and say the only way to find change in the world is through love and forgiveness. So whatever, quote unquote, evils we see in the world, we have to stop seeing them as evils and see them as perhaps misunderstandings, ignorance, the absence of love in whatever form that may take. So to forgive the world is it's the same process we do on day 2, forgive others. We're just kind of sliding it over to world issues, essentially.
Because again, people can only react or operate from their level of consciousness. So
yes.
And that does, when you put things in perspective, it's amazing how you can actually feel your heart open, compassion. Yeah. And I can easily slide into both. You know what I mean? I can see myself, I can absolutely, and I've done it where I've had that perspective. And then of course I'll watch the news for 2 hours, because it was on TV, and I can find myself all of a sudden sliding down that vibration and getting into the polarization. So it takes practice.
It definitely takes practice. That's very true. It kind of goes back to the famous quote from Christ on the cross when he said, being nailed to the cross, he's literally forgiving his murderers while they're murdering him and says, "Forgive them, Father. They know not what they do." Like that to me sums up forgiveness. Ultimately, you have to see that unforgiveness hurts me. Like it's painful for me to hate. It's sort of like heroin or something. Like when I shoot that drug up, whoa, it feels so good for that second. And then it just destroys every piece of my life afterwards. And if you stay focused on that little hit of ego you get when you hate and judge others, then you're going to keep doing it until eventually you get so beaten down and exhausted and miserable at the person you've become that you say, I've got to try another way. And then the heart becomes open to forgiveness.
That is so well said. And people that, and I can relate to this because I've been that part. I can see that part of me somewhere in my lifetime. But when you're judgy in that place and projecting it literally, you can feel yourself decaying. You could feel yourself getting sick.
If you're self-aware, yes.
You can feel yourself getting sick. And then to make that transition is just, it's freedom. It really is.